Hello and welcome back. This is what we'll be making today. It's a leg rig. Okay, so this is a really simple model and you've seen me do a lot of those, so I'm not going to explain much. Start with a sphere and I cut half of it out. I'm going to make a cut over there and extrude some leg out of it. Okay, so to create the UV, I'm going to use a planar projection from the front. I'm going to do some cuts so I can separate the front part from the back part. This character is going to be like a huge eye with legs, so I want that eye straight. For the leg, I'm going to use camera projection. I'm going to make a cut alongside the vertical line. I'm gonna open it. For the feet, I'm gonna do a planar projection on Y, one for the bottom of the feet and one from the top of the feet. So we'll have both sides. We're just gonna select the bottom here and project. And that's pretty much it. That's the UV for this character. If you've been following the tutorials so far, you're probably really used to this. I'm just filling some colors with the pen tool, making some shapes. Then I'm gonna use the brush tool with a low opacity and paint some darker areas and some lighter areas. There's nothing really new here. Okay, now I'm gonna actually get started, so let's delete the history on this, freeze transformations, and start positioning your joints. If you can't see your joints, you should go to display animation joint size, it's probably really small. Let's put our hip, oh, that's too big. I'll adjust it, but we put our hip on the start of our leg. One joint in the center to be the center of gravity, one on the start of the leg, then one on the knee, one on the ankle, one on the bottom of the foot, so the start of the ball of the foot, and one on the end of the toe. That will be used for the foot roll. So that's what we basically want for the legs. Let's mirror it to the other side. But first let's rename our joints, so they should all be like left upper leg, left knee, left ankle, left ball, and left toe. So when it mirrors, it can change from left to right. Now we got our skeleton done, we should now start making our IKLeg. Let's go to IK handle, pick a rotate plane solver, and let's create an IK handle from the upper leg to the ankle. You see, this is how the IK works. By moving the IK handle, it will calculate the rotation of the other joints accordingly. Now to have our foot roll and the other foot controls, we need to make another 2 IK handles. This time it will be a single rotation solver, single chain solver. One from the ankle to the ball and one from the ball to the toe. We're going to be using those for the ball roll and heel lift and the toe pivots. We need to put those into a specific hierarchy. So first let's name them so we don't get confused on what IK handles what. Okay. First we're going to pick the ankle handle, group it, and move the pivot of it to the ball joint. This one's going to be to lift our heel without moving the toe. This is important for our foot roll animation. Move the pivot there with the D and V keys to the ball joint. Yep, that's what we want. Now let's select both the toe handle and ball handle and group those together. This will be used to move the toe, so we can call it our toe lift group. The pivot should also be on the ball. Now those two groups, you should group them together, and this will be used to lift the whole foot, pivoting from the toe. So this will be our toe pivot group. Next, we should group this group together, the toe pivots. This group should be the ankle group. We put our pivot on the ankle, and this group will control the whole foot together as one thing. That's the heel lift. Okay. Now let's do the same thing to the other leg. So let's name this left. I'm gonna speed this up. A rotate plane should be used from the upper leg to the ankle, then a single plane from the ankle to the ball, from the ball to the toe. Then we group the right ankle, and this should be the heel lift. The pivot should be on the ball. The other two should be grouped together, and that will be the toe lift, also with the pivot on the ball. Then we group those two groups together, and that will be our toe pivot. We should put the pivot on the toe. And lastly, we group that last group together, and that will be our ankle pivot. That's going to be moving the whole feet. That's the hierarchy we need for the foot. Now we need to create the controllers. So first the controller for center of gravity. It's going to be the main mass of the character. Make a NURB circle, position it on that first joint. Freeze transformations, it's always important to remember to freeze transformations on those. We're gonna duplicate this one, and this will be the control for the rotation of her hips, and it will be rotated independently from the center of gravity. So let's change a little bit this visual of this controller, pick those vertices and do something different with it so you know which one is which. This will be a child of the center of gravity, so let's put this inside this one. So when one is moved, the other moves with it. To make our hips controller, to actually move our hips, we need two locators. One snapped to each of the hip joints. So snap it, duplicate it, rename each one, left and right hip helper. What we need to do is we need to constrain those with point constraints to the joints. So select the locator, select the joint, go into constrain, point constrain. So when those move, we'll be actually moving those joints. Now we need to parent constrain the locators to the hip rotation controller. So it will actually be moving our locator when it rotates. So pick the controller, then pick the locator, constrain, parent. Remember to maintain offset. Now when we rotate it, it should be actually moving the locator and thus moving the leg. Lastly, we need to parent our COG or center of gravity controller, the main controller, to the joint. So pick the COG controller, then pick the main joint and go and constrain parent. So now it can move the whole rig. You'll see now we can just start having some fun just by moving things around. It's kind of funny to see the joints reacting to the movement. And that's the cool thing about an IK rig. Okay, now we need to actually control the feet. So let's make new controllers for the foot. Let's create a NURBS curve, circle. Position it under the feet. Instead of using groups to do the hierarchy, we could have used curves. That would probably have been smarter of me. But we can still just create the curves and position the specific groups under the curves. So I'll pick that group for the ankle pivot and I'm going to position inside this controller. So this controller will be controlling that group. I'm also going to put the pivots to the ankle just like the group had. On regular Maya, if you're not using Maya LT, you could actually do set-driven keys to control the foot roll, so you wouldn't actually need to make a controller for each of those groups. You could just make a set-driven key to control each, but right now on Maya LT, that's not a feature Maya LT currently has. I'm hoping they'll add that in the future because it's really useful to rigging, but right now we'll just have to create controllers for each of those. I'm not going to be explaining how you can create each individual controller. By now you should know how to do that. You just have to make the controllers, position them in the same places as the pivots are in those groups, and put those groups inside each respective controller. It's not really rocket science. You can watch me doing it here and you can probably figure it out. Okay, so now our rig is pretty much there. There's only one thing missing, it's the pole vector control, so we can control the direction the knee is pointing at. Create a new controller, position it in front of the knee. Always remember, all the controllers should be freezing the transformations after you make them. So let's freeze the transformation of this one. Position this one to the right as well for transformations. Then select the pole vector control, select the ankle handler, and add a pole vector constraint in constraint pole vector. Now you can control the direction that the knee is pointing. Remember to do that to the other side as well. You see how it works? I'm gonna lift the leg here to show it better. The knee will point wherever this controller is, so you can animate it to animate the knee. Okay? One last thing, let's make one main controller and put all other controllers inside it, so we can move the whole character rig at once. If we need to have more than one character in the scene, we can position those easier with a main controller. So let's put those pole vectors in there, and the foot controllers and the COG controllers. I'm gonna just group those here and call it the rig group, controls group actually. This one will be the joints group. This way our rig is all nice and organized. Now we need to skin our character, so let's select the hierarchy of the joints. We want to select all the joints except the toe, because he won't be controlling anything on the mesh. It's just there for pivot. And let's do a skin smooth bind. Okay, now our character is moving, but some things in the main body of the character are moving together with the leg, and I don't want that. And that knee is also kind of crunching weird. So let's paint our skin weights. If you watched the previous tutorial on FK rigging, you probably already know how to paint the skin weights, but I'm gonna go over a little bit more with you guys. Right now, the leg is controlling some things I don't want it to control on the main body, and vice versa. So I'm going to select both legs. I'm going to start by removing all the weight from the main body out of the legs. First, let's make the normal weights to post, normalize our weights to post. I don't like interactive. Okay, so now I removed the weights of the COG over the legs. Then I'm going to do the opposite on the legs. I'm going to select only the COG. I'm going to remove those weights from the legs. So fluid 0, go back one joint, fluid 0, go down one joint, fluid 0, fluid 0, fluid 0, fluid 0. And now those joints over there are not being controlled by COG, so let's fluid 1 here. And now the COG controls the whole COG, but not the legs. Now let's pick each part of the leg and assign a fluid of 1 for the right joint, so left upper leg, fluid 1 there. Our leg's already looking better. Let's fluid 0 here for the knee, because we don't want the knee controlling that part. Now the next part, the knee, we want fluid 1 on the knee for that, and then 0 for the upper leg, and 0 for the ankle. We just pick each part and we paint 1 where we want them, and 0 where we don't want them. Okay. I'll do the same thing for the rest of the leg, then I'm gonna mirror the weights to the other leg. Okay, let's check our foot roll now. That's not what I wanted. This looks like his foot's breaking and going to the ground, and it's weird. Oh, I see the problem there, you see? It's still controlling the toes a little bit. I want the toe to be controlled only by the toe joint. So let's pick those toes. Let's take them out of the ankle. Give them to the ball joint. Yeah, that's what I meant, ball joint. Yeah, now it has a foot roll that's nicer. This is not the foot roll. This is the foot roll. Point, point. Yep, that's a nice foot roll. So let's do the same thing on the other side now. Look at that sexy guy, look at those hips go. Yeah, shake it, baby. Yeah, he got it. Woo, woo, yeah, I jumped. Wee, wee. I love rigging. This is the part that makes me love rigging, when I start moving the character around and it just looks funny. Alright, so now we should get some animation on this guy. I am gonna do a animation class on this tutorial channel when I get to the characters, so right now I'm not gonna explain much, just little touches here and there, but mostly I'll just let the video play and make some comments. Right now, first thing I wanna do is to make a contact pose with the front leg more straight, starting to touch the ground, and the other leg already kind of outside the ground. I'm gonna duplicate this pose to the ends of the animation so it loops. Then I'm gonna go into the middle frame, around frame 7 here. I'm gonna do the exact opposite pose. So the front leg that was in the front now is in the back in the same position as the other one was. The other one's in the same position the other one was. So if you play now, you'll actually see like some running, but it's bad because it's only 2 poses. Now I'm gonna do the down pose. So right after the contact pose comes the down pose, when the leg goes flat on the ground and the center of gravity of the character goes down with it, putting his weight on that leg. You see? We do the down pose on the other side as well. When I do a pose on one side, I like to go and do it the same pose opposite on the other side. See? So we're the same. After that, I need a passing pose. So my feet is still flat on the ground, but now my weight's more in front of it, and my center of gravity has gone upper because I'm now going up on that leg and getting it more stretched out. And the other leg is passing forward now. You see? Now it looks more like he's running if you play it like that. Let's do the same thing for the other side. Okay. Yep, that looks more like a run. There are other things you can do. I'm actually missing an up pose. That's after the passing pose, when he's more up. Even the COG is even more up, and his feet might even be getting both feet out of the ground, depending on how fast the run is. So let's do a little up pose here. So that feet is now almost out of the ground, just touching the toe there. The COG needs to be even more up, so it's like a little jump. Let's put this even more down. Yep. Now you do the same thing on the other side. That's where the foot roll really comes in handy. That's a jump. You can move the hips controller so the knee doesn't pop. You don't want the knee to completely go like... Okay. So yeah, that should be our running animation. Yep, that looks nice. I added a little bit of side-to-side movements, but only to one side. Let's add it to the other side as well. So when he goes down on one leg, his center of gravity shifts a little bit more toward the right or the left, depending on the leg he's going down to. And that's it. If you like this video, please support my videos on Patreon. I'll see you next Tuesday.